Welcome to Source Not Found, a show about the worst versions of your favorite things. Each episode we explore IPs, franchises, and fandoms solely through sequels, spin-offs, side projects, or in this case, side-scrolling old video games. Basically anything except for the source. I am Bo Woodall, and I am so excited to go back to Camp Crystal Lake with my favorite counselors, Mark and Chrissy.
And I'm Brandon June, and I'm excited just to play as anyone except Debbie. Fuck Debbie.
Debbie was the worst. Oh, God. And
fucking
Paul?
Debbie.
Was it Paul?
I don't know. I mean, like, rate your favorite counselor. It's like rating my favorite bowel movement from the last week. Like, yeah, I guess some are better than others, but they're all shitty.
They're all garbage.
But yeah, Chrissy is my girl.
Dude, Mark for me, dude. He was a lifesaver. This month, we are covering Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, two of the biggest horror movie franchises of all time. And Bo's never seen any of those movies. I wasn't a horror movie kid, really. Like, I saw the first Ring movie and didn't sleep for like a while. And we didn't really do a lot of horror movies when I was super young. After I saw Killer Clowns from Outer Space, I was done, man. I never wanted to see another fucking horror movie.
That's right. You're one of those that has a thing about clowns. I remember this.
Really am. Yeah.
I love horror movies. I've seen most of these films. A lot of them. So I've been actually going back through these franchises recently in preparation for our conversation here. And I realized a lot of these movies, particularly Friday the 13th, I had only seen like in bits and pieces, late nights when I wasn't supposed to be watching them, staying up too late, watching them at a low volume on the TV downstairs while my parents were sleeping. So like, 20 minutes of Friday the 13th 4. I remember this scene from this movie. Like, it was fun. Like, oh yeah, the scene when like Jason just shoves a guy into a tree trunk and it leaves like a bloody smiley face behind. Like, it's super goofy. Like, I remember seeing that as a kid and I couldn't place which movie that was, and watching back through them like, yep. Okay, this scene stuck with me.
Yeah, so I haven't. So this month we're covering those two franchises, and this week we're talking about the NES games, Friday the 13th NES, and A Nightmare on Elm Street NES. Both actually distributed by the same company, which I thought was very funny.
Yeah,
LJN.
same publisher.
Yeah. They just did movie video games.
And I mean, this was the peak era for that, right? Late 80s into the 90s, just tie-in after tie-in game. I mean, even, just jumping into it, right? Like, if we're starting with Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Year
and
1989.
And don't forget, we're doing, just like we did with Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, narrative structure, gameplay, visual, sound, and fun factor. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure they're going to score a little bit higher than Mythologies.
I mean, that's a low bar, but yes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Like
these games are better.
you said, we found our floor. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Even just before getting into the games though, like, so 1989, this is what we're talking about. Let's set the stage a little bit. Other games released in this year. These are both Nintendo Entertainment System products. Other NES games released in 1989. Mega Man 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, DuckTales, Shadowgate, River City Ransom, Castlevania 3, Batman the Movie the Game, and Strider. Just to give you a sense of what was out there at the time, what might have been on the shelf next to Friday the 13th to potentially entice you as a consumer. Would this have been the best choice, given the other things out there in the game shelf?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I mean,
yeah.
I had an NES, and I loved my NES. Man, obviously, I didn't have this game, but... Okay. We'll talk through it. We'll talk through it.
That's interesting though, to have that perspective, because I did not have an NES. I got into gaming a couple years after this era via the Super Nintendo. So my NES experience, I don't have so much nostalgia for it. It was mostly by way of cousins' houses. The person that babysat me for a while had one in the basement.
Sure. Things
like that. So like playing bits and pieces, certain games stand out in my memory. This game I actually did play for a while. A friend in high school, we would hang out in their basement for like band practice stuff, and they had an NES set up on an old CRT, tucked it away, beside the drums. And occasionally after like playing music, this is one of the games I would try and like fumble through a little bit. So I've had some experience.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It did not prepare me for this experience because I didn't know what I was doing then and didn't know what I was doing now.
Yeah, no. So yeah, let's start off with the narrative structure of Friday the 13th. So again, I have no experience with these franchises. All I know is Jason is a hockey mask man who kills co-eds most of the time during or immediately after sex.
So, well, sometimes they're talking about where they're going to have sex.
Oh, and then he gets them then?
Yeah, like right before they're about to get into it. But bookends for sexual experiences, the Jason slaughter.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to give my basic impression of the narrative structure of this game.
I can't wait to hear it.
Okay. So you play as a series of camp counselors, and you're trying to protect children from Jason.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to actively kill Jason
mm-hmm.
to keep the kids safe. Does he go after children?
He goes after just about anybody. Yeah. I mean, the first few movies...
I can't imagine in like the 70s, 80s horror movie franchises, they just like straight up murder a lot of kids. Like, when I say kids, I mean, their first sleepaway camp kid age. Like...
Right.
Preteen and younger. I could see him going after the counselors because they're sinning, but I didn't understand. Okay.
The thing about Friday the 13th is it's a very confused franchise as a whole. They didn't really know what they wanted to do for several movies. Like, oh, it's Jason's mom. No, actually, like Jason is...
I was going to say, there's a disembodied head of Jason's mom, and there are also zombies in the game.
Yeah.
I thought that Jason was the only bad guy in the movies.
Yeah, but I mean, it's NES era, right? You got to have some bullshit on screen. So, like, sure,
right.
Zombies, wolves, crows, whatever. It's NES era bullshit. Just
yeah, and so you also just throw rocks for the first part, and the only thing that Jason seems to be afraid of is fire, which that's pretty on the nose for like a Frankenstein-esque monster.
Yeah.
And a pitchfork.
Yeah.
Pitchfork is like the master sword in this game, right? Like, once you get the pitchfork, everything's pretty kosher.
So I've heard. I didn't get the pitchfork.
Most things die in one hit with a pitchfork, except for like Jason. And he loves his mom very much, so much that he won't hurt you if you kill his mom and steal her sweater.
Yeah. So a lot of these things, they are fun pulls from the movies. So that's the second movie, I think, right? One of the counselors that survives like makes her way to Jason's shack in the woods and finds a shrine set up to his dead mother with her head on on the altar.
Okay. So I did not know that was his mother.
There was no reason that you should. There's nothing in the game to hint at that.
I realize I made a mistake when I watched your Twitch stream and you went through the game manual, and all of a sudden the game made sense.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the era, you got to read those manuals. So that's a prime component of the game.
I didn't read the manual. Instead, I just kind of followed the direction of the game. So, like, the narrative structure of the game is you are camp counselors, you're protecting kids, you need to get better weapons, you need to light all the fireplaces, and you need to kill Jason. Right? Is that...
Yeah, I mean, you got it. But so you're telling me, you went through this entire experience, and you didn't read some of these just gems in the manual here. Like, some of my narrative points are going to come directly from whoever penned this instruction manual. What a wordsmith. Page 11, deadly enemies and hazards. We've got descriptions of the monsters you face in the game, right? The zombies, the bats, Jason's mother. But just when we get to the Jason description, I'm just going to read this. It's not going to be as long as, yeah.
I did want to point out something that I don't know if this is important to the narrative structure or not. He loves pastels.
He does.
He is a very, very eclectic fashion sense.
I mean, it's an iconic purple tracksuit.
Is he really that color in the movies?
No.
Like, no. I assume they did it just for like visual, like a visual video game aid. He looked silly, but he looked kind of fun.
Yeah,
but
way
like
more silly
bright
fun
teal
than
and purple was bright teal and purple was a serial killer choice.
You know, he needs to. He wants you to know that he's coming for you. He wants you to be able to.
Well, you can see him a mile
lake.
fucking away. Yeah.
Yeah.
The lake that you have to go around in a circle, or you can't find the fucking cabins.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So, in the manual, you're just reading this for the first time. You meet your camp counselors, George, Mark, Paul, Laura, Debbie, and Chrissy. You're introduced to some of the enemies. The zombies, the bats, the wolves, Jason's mother, and crows. Then we got Jason. Jason, last, but certainly not least, is the main threat to safe camping. The Maven of Mayhem, the Sultan of Slash, the ghoul that everyone loves to hate, Jason. He'll attack out of nowhere and disappear just as quickly. And just the Sultan of Slash. Points on the board already just for that phrase. Thank you, anonymous contributor from LJN Toys Limited.
That was Jeff Roven.
Yeah, he was actually writing as a manual. Yeah. Yeah. Manual writer. Yep.
So I have a few questions about the narrative, if you wouldn't mind helping me here.
Yeah. I'll try. I'm not an expert by any stretch of this franchise.
We are playing children. Teenagers, probably, right?
Yeah, they're young adults. Like, I want to say they're all like late, like 19, 20, around there.
I was going to say late teens, early 20s, most likely.
Yeah.
Jason is a good, based on the video game at least, Jason is a good 10 feet tall.
He's a big boy.
Why does he run away from us?
Ow, quit it. Ow, quit it. You're hitting me.
Yeah.
The rocks, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Also, is the camp that nice in the movies? Because it's based on what we're looking at here in the video game, it is really, really a nice camp. Like, it's a rich kid camp. The camp that I went to as a child was a camp for wayward boys because my mom made an accident. She made a whoopsie. A real bad whoopsie that she still feels bad about to this day. So I was a 12-year-old at a camp for child criminals, basically little canos.
Oh wow. Okay.
Dude, it was run by the state sheriff department. Like, it was, man.
Yeah. Okay. I had a much more wholesome camping experience than you. I mean, I was telling you last time about my 4-H camp, right? Getting woken up by the Mortal Kombat theme. I went to a number of different camps over the years. Some of them were like sleepaway camps. Some of them were just day camps. So this didn't seem like, a whole lot nicer than what I've been accustomed to. It seemed like you're running the mill sleepaway camp. In the movies, yeah, I don't know. It's usually in the process of being fixed up. Like, someone's moving in, like, oh, I know we had some messy murders here some years back, but new leadership, we're going to turn this place around. We're going to rename it.
That crazy 80s kind of thing where it's like, we have new management. Like, we're going to turn the mountain into a series of condos or whatever. But instead it's a campground. Sure.
Yeah. But they don't account for Jason lurking out there in the shadows.
With his mom's head, I guess. Are there just shitty counselors? And like 2 that are really good at everything? Because that was my experience playing this game. You had Mark and Chrissy, who are fucking awesome. And then you had George, Paul, Laura, and Debbie, who are absolute trash people.
Yeah. I guess that does sort of make sense because, like, in these movies, like, all of them are just idiots, right? They're all just like going barefoot out, like falling down through the woods, like tripping over tree logs, running away, screaming, like basically doing like a Three Stooges routine all by themselves, just like.
I mean, this is where the cliches come from, right? Like,
yeah.
The cliches of the, don't forget to look behind that door, and, that sort of classic horror movie cliches come from franchises that are popular for a reason.
So there is usually like in the first few movies, like a single character, usually like a scream queen. She makes it, she survives.
Sure.
Everyone else, and then like she's running around, like stumbling upon their dead bodies and running from Jason.
The final
facing
girl.
Him. Yeah. So I mean, you asked about kids. Eventually, Corey Feldman does show up. I think this is the 4th movie. So I think that's the first instance of like having children in the franchise. Spoiler alert. He survives.
Yeah,
so
they didn't like, he's a child.
Yeah, they didn't kill a whole lot of kids. In fact, I can't think of any kids that actually died. Now that I'm thinking about it, there are kids increasingly as the movies go on, but usually it's the adults.
That's why this kind of the narrative part of it confused me, because it seemed like we were protecting the kids should have been protecting us. Like, it seems unreasonable to me, especially like to have a main bad guy for a horror movie franchise who just goes after children. It seems too evil.
Like, I didn't even think about it in terms of the morality or the ethics of it. I thought of it in terms of just gameplay. I mean, this is jumping ahead, but just there are already so many stressors at work, like just having the kids on top of it. Just like, let's have the situation like from the original movies where it's just counselors like coming in, getting the camp prepared for potential campers. And that's when Jason strikes. Like, we haven't actually opened the camp yet. And that would have been enough.
Okay, I was going to say, so let's give our narrative structure scores real fast and move on to gameplay, because that kind of feeds right into it.
Sure.
Because I was so confused, I went with Brandon Teacher scoring structure. I think that there was a narrative. It did function. It just didn't function well and to my liking necessarily, so I gave it a 6.
Well, wouldn't you know it? So did I.
Really?
Yeah, I gave it a 6. I was thinking like I said, there are a lot of great pulls from the movies. If you read the manual and if you have a bit of conception about the franchise, you can kind of like fill in the gaps, because this game doesn't give you a whole lot. But also, like with all these games from this era, you really do have to step back in time and remember, like, we're working, like, this is the early days of like conveying a narrative through a video game.
Right.
Like, yeah, at this point, like, we do have role-playing games out there, and like they are starting to up the ante. But generally, like, and especially with a game like this, like a side-scrolling platformer or like a beat 'em up with like Nightmare on Elm Street, is it enough to get you in the door? Is it enough to like get you on task and feel like you're invested enough to see this adventure through? And I think it was fine in that regard. And actually, I want to give it points for ambition. There's a lot of potential here. They don't fully execute it. But when you are like traveling through these cabins, when you're exploring these cabins and finding these drop notes that are hinting about like what you need to be doing, because basically when you jump into this game, you have no idea. You're just like out in the middle of camp. There's zombies encroaching, and you're just like, let me go in a house here. Let me start exploring. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where to go. And then you gradually like find some items. You find a lighter. Oh, now I need to light the fireplaces in the cabins. And after you do a few of those, you get a note. You find a note in one of the cabins saying like, oh, go to the cave. Go to the cabin by the cave. Go to the cabin by the cave. Oh, go to the cave. They're pretty bare bones. Just like Jason's afraid of fire. Check out the cabin in the woods, whatever. And I thought that actually is a bit of narrative. Like you're following these narrative threads. I wish there was more personality and character to these notes. Like, and it would have been so easy, right? Like, find a note and it's like penned by a fellow counselor or someone else from the campground. Like, oh my God, like Jason's falling behind me. I dropped the machete in the woods. I had to run. I think it's still there. Something instead of just, there's a machete in the woods, just very bare bones.
Right.
So like points for like having notes that you find in the game. I just wish there was more to it, like there was such a chance there to take. And it doesn't take much. I'm thinking of like the original Resident Evil, like all those like really iconic journal entries and bits of lore you find throughout the mansion. I mean, what is the most iconic one for me? It's itchy tasty. That's all it took. Itchy tasty. Like just something in one of these notes to like hint at like the menace, If
I would have read the manual before I jumped into the game, I would probably give it a little bit higher of a score, like maybe up to a 7. Because then I would understand the fact that that's Jason's mom, and I would get more out of it. I think if that was there, because it doesn't offer you any of that in game,
right?
And having not seen the films, I had no idea, why Jason was there, why he was killing kids, and that will move us directly into gameplay. I think the kids, man. I don't need another clock. Jason is. This is a pretty brutal game. Jason punches you 3 times and you're toast.
Yeah.
The added on kind of skill check of making sure that you're able to keep the kids alive, and if the kids die, it's game over anyway. And all it takes is 4 mistakes for all of the kids to die. It just seemed like a bunch to throw at a game like this.
There are so many systems at play. So just for anyone that hasn't played this game, basically, the vast majority of it is you moving side-scroller style around this campground, going in and out of cabins, going in and out of the woods, going in and out of a cave. Jason is on this, like, I think it's like a randomized loop. He randomly shows up around the camp in and out of certain cabins. You have 6 counselors that you're able to play as. They have to stay posted up where you last left them. So you leave them within a cabin. You can switch to another counselor somewhere else in camp, play as them, pop back into a cabin, switch back.
Right.
As Jason is making his rounds, he will randomly pop into a cabin that might have a counselor in it, at which point you are alerted that he's about to kill the counselor. You have about a minute to get over there and save them. Face Jason head on. This includes the children too. So we also have the children right north of the lake in a cabin. They stay there the whole time, and Jason will also randomly pop in there.
Well, so that was kind of one of my gameplay things. Like, if you get rid of the clock with the kids, it's a pretty fun little loop.
That's all it would take. Yes, that extra, the counselors is enough. That's enough of a stressor to try and keep them alive. Having this constant, I mean, it's just constantly going off, this beeping of like, oh, Jason's coming again.
That sound, man, I dreamt it.
Yeah. It's awful. It's always going off, and it hits all the time. It's like sometimes within like a minute of the last one, he's back at it again, right? Depending on where you last left somebody, if they're maybe on his loop.
So that's really one of the things that I liked a lot about the game, gameplay wise.
Mm-hmm.
If you individually got all of your counselors a pretty decent weapon, you're in pretty good shape.
That's a big ask.
As long as you could get to them. Like, I don't even know how many game overs I had where it said, like, Jason murdered all your friends, or Jason wiped out all the kids, or something like that.
Yeah, they almost all came from that. My game overs. I usually didn't die facing an enemy. I mean, occasionally facing Jason. He's tough.
Right. He's a hefty boy.
Yeah.
But like, the time that I actually did really well on the game and actually ended up beating Jason was the first thing I did was went to every one of my counselors, knocked out their kill count so items would spawn, got them a knife, and then shoved them back in a cabin.
Yeah.
And then I just hung out with Mark and Chrissy, my road dogs. Like that little loop is fun, and I like the day to night, like more enemies spawn at night, it seemed, and I didn't like the vitamins very much because they only worked whenever you were like out of life. You couldn't like top your health up, which kind of sucked. I was so confused
by that for a while. Like, how do I use these vitamins to top off my health? You don't. You just have to like basically die, and then
you just die. Yeah, and it'll heal you. Yeah. I liked the notes. The notes, like you said, very, very helpful. I mean, in a game like this, I needed the handheld. I needed my handheld a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what the fuck was going on. But unlike Sub-Zero Mythologies or Mythology Sub-Zero, the controls were friendly and easy because there are only 3 buttons.
I was going to say, they don't have the chance to give you a change stance button when you only have an A and B to work with. Yeah.
But I mean, like, there was a jump button. Like, that's all I needed after our last experience.
There's a jump button and there's an attack button, but don't think you're going to use them at the same time. There's no jump and attack, which...
No, I hated that. That frustrated the hell out of me.
Yeah, that sucked. Usually you didn't need it, but in the caves you really kind of do. Because you have enemies at different elevations on different levels, and you can't attack them before jumping on the platform.
Why did they make it so the stones went over the heads of the zombies? The only way you could constantly hit your enemies, with the rocks at least, is I just ducked down and threw them.
Yeah.
It was fine.
It punishes you at as many opportunities as it can, right?
And the boat, like, fuck man, like that lake, the fact that things are jumping out of the water, the crows were coming down, you can't aim what you're throwing, so it's not like you can kill something before it deals damage to you, which sucks.
They spawn out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
You default to attacking to your left, which is fine when you're trying to go left across the lake. The only way to attack to your right is to hold right on the D-pad, which means you have to be moving right to attack, which means like if you have an enemy spawning to your right and you want to get it, you have to move towards the enemy. And if it has spawned right next to your boat, which it often does, you have to run into the enemy in pursuit of this task of maybe taking it down. It's very difficult to do. It's very annoying.
Did you struggle finding fireplaces?
Did I struggle? Just finish that sentence with whatever you like, and the answer is yes. I struggled with it all. For the longest time, I couldn't find the goddamn fireplaces. So this is an interesting, there's a lot to praise about this game. It's very ambitious. We do have the side-scrolling portions around the camp. when you go into a cabin, you go into first person mode. And you
like
talked
Punch
about,
Out, right?
Well, yeah, when you face Jason in the cabin, it's like it's Punch Out
Like
style,
Mike Tyson's
basically.
Punch Out.
Yeah. When you're exploring the cabins, to me, it more evoked like a one of those dungeon crawling RPGs from the era. Your Ultimas, and it was funny. Like I thought, this actually gives me Megami Tensei vibes. Digital Devil Story, like their first game in that franchise, which was on the NES, the Famicom.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
wouldn't you know it, I was distracted by the big, vibrant LJN Toys Limited, the publisher of the game. But looking into information on the game, this game was developed by Atlas of Persona and Shin Megami Tensei.
I was gonna say they fucking made Persona.
Yeah, and then as soon as I saw that, like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like how these interior environments look is so reminiscent of those early Megami Tensei games, and that is similarly for like I think it's like an 87 dungeon crawler RPG. A very ambitious game with a lot of systems at work. There's like moon phases that impact like enemy behavior.
There's a lot going on there.
And there's just so much going on in this game too. Like we've got these exploring these cabins, and for the longest time I didn't realize there was an additional wing to the cabin. It's like, where are the I did so many loops to this goddamn campground. Like where I've been in every cabin, I can't find the fireplace. And there are multiple fireplaces. Like where are these things?
Yeah.
And just like suddenly some random button press, like, oh my God, I could actually go into this other hidden wing of all of these big cabins, and there they are.
Yeah, and having to map out like the forests and the cave. Yeah, it sucked. That part sucked. Like the combat platformer aspect of it, or the side scrolling aspect of it was pretty fun. It was a pretty good time. But some of the other things that they were trying to kind of throw at you, like you said, it was very, very ambitious, and there's some really cool stuff going on there. But some of it was just annoying. Like,
yeah, talking about the woods. So let's do a quick thought experiment.
Okay.
You go into a forest. There's a path just to the south of you. You hit down on the D-pad. You go down the path. Now you're spawned into a new scene. You're in the same section of forest. It's identical. There's nothing around you except a path right to your north. Where would you expect that path to go? Would you expect it to return you to where you just came from?
Yes.
So would I. It doesn't.
Yeah. It takes you deeper into the forest somehow.
Fuck this. In the last year, I actually played through Colossal Cave Adventure, like that first text adventure game from back in like the mid 70s. And there's a maze section in that game where like you're using cardinal directions. And I remember getting lost in the maze and thinking like, oh, I went south and I went east and I went southwest or whatever. I don't know where I am. Let me just backtrack. I'll do the inverse of every direction. So like I went south, let me go north here. Oh, I went east, let me go west here. Thinking that would take me back, and it doesn't. And then I looked into it, and that's how that game functions. Like there isn't a one-to-one. You can't like trace back out like the path you came in. I still don't know how it works. It just like confuses the hell out of me.
That fucking sucks.
It's insane. And like you can just get lost in there and then run out of time, or what is it, your lantern or whatever, and just die. And that's the end of your adventure.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of that, where like it's not so bad. Like a lot of just random button presses eventually got me to both the cabin and back out of the woods. But I didn't even attempt to map it because it just didn't make sense. Like I didn't have any foundation for which to like to base my map on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like where do I even begin if like the pathways don't make sense based on what I'm seeing? Like what the game is communicating to me as a player. Like I don't even know where to begin with the graph paper.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I was able to get the cavern. I was able to map that one out. The woods just drove me absolutely mad. Yeah. The only other thing about gameplay that I really want to mention is the stats for the counselors.
They have stats?
Yeah. Yeah. I looked this up after seeing the difference in like run speed, jumps, like jump height and stuff like that.
I just meant that as like, when you say stats, that makes me think they must have some sort of inherent ability of some sort, and these counselors can't do jack shit.
Well, Mark and Chrissy are all right.
When you say okay, this is relative here, folks. Like this is like a bit of Stockholm syndrome at play. Like, oh, Chrissy, my girl, she's so great. She's not. No. She does the basic, like, I don't know. She shows up for class, and that's
Debbie
it.
is
like she's present.
Debbie is garbage.
She she can actually make a jump. She can actually have some functionality.
Move across this. Yeah, she can run away from a zombie and it doesn't catch her.
Yeah, and in this game, that feels like you're going above and beyond. When like in any other game, like she would just be absolute dog shit.
So there are 5 stats given to each counselor: strength, run speed, row speed, jump, and kill count. Kill count is how many enemies they have to kill before items start spawning for them.
Mm-hmm.
So like with, I think it was Mark, you kill 3 enemies and then you get your lighter, right? And then all of a sudden items will start spawning more and more and more. One, there's only one lake. You don't have to go on it that often. Get rid of row speed. Like what the shit, man. But I was looking through some of these. If a character has, other than Chrissy, if a character has an A in strength, they have Fs in everything else. So there's only 2 grades for each of the abilities, and it's a plus or a minus. So I wrote an A or an F. Mark has an F in strength and an A in everything else. And Chrissy has an F in row speed and an A in everything else.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Everybody else has 3 Fs and 1 A. Like that's just poor planning.
It's bad design.
That's bad design. When Debbie can't even fucking jump over a zombie's head because her jump ability is so poor, and she can't outrun a wolf that chases after her, but Mark and Chrissy certainly can. Like that frustrated the fuck out of me, because if I lost Mark and Chrissy, I might as well quit the game.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, usually the trade-offs are noticeable when you have multiple characters. Like, oh, they're not so fast, but they're super strong. I went through this whole game like, what? 4 out of 6 of these counselors are absolutely useless in my book. Like, I've got Mark and Chrissy, and it, like you said, if you lose them, just like, let me just restart, I guess. Yeah. And the thing is, like, you kind of want to save them because the game gets progressively harder as each day goes by. But then, like, you kind of need to use them to even get that far. Like, if you get stuck with some of these counselors, like, there's just no way you can't even jump over Jason when he shows up with half of these counselors. Like, he'll just slam you into the wall.
The only ones you can jump over him with are Mark and Chrissy, I think.
When I got to the cave with, I think, Debbie, let's just say Debbie, odds are it's Debbie, I couldn't even jump up to the next level of the cave. I couldn't get to the next floor. She wasn't able to make that jump. So, like, if you get to that portion of the game with her, you just can't progress. You just can't do anything.
I am so pleased that no one was in the house while I played this game, because at one point, Chrissy and Mark, I started with Mark and then he died. And so I was with Chrissy and all of a sudden she died. And I yelled at the top of my lungs, "Those kids are fucked." And it's just like, turned off the game, restarted it. And I was like, well, as soon as that happened and it transferred me over to Paul, I was like, well, this is it. We're boned. There's nothing I can do. Those kids are so dead.
Yeah. I actually streamed this on Twitch a couple days. At the end of day 2, my second stream, I was like, I can't do this I can't do this for the public. Like, I'm hiding a lot of rage right now, and I'm not ready to make the full pivot to like angry video game nerd. Like, that's not who I want to be online. So I have to do the rest of this privately. Just and you know, I have to engage my rage in a different, more private setting. Please and thank you. Ease back into the sofa, brew a pot of tea. You know, just like take meditation breaks in between, do breathing exercises, just get a
foot spa or something, you know, like
something to counterbalance this bullshit. So we talked about all these systems, all these stressors. Everyone's dying, everyone's eating shit. The kids are getting off. Like, by the second, you're still trying to like complete all these tasks. You're trying to like hold on to your precious 2 counselors that you got, 2 out of 6. You're trying to amass all these weapons like you need. I ended the game with the torch. I had the most luck with the torch.
The torch was awesome. The pitchfork.
Well, is it awesome?
The pitchfork
is better.
It's better, yeah. The pitchfork, I think I got from Jason's mom.
I fought her. I didn't get that. What day did you fight her?
2, I think.
I fought her I fought her twice. One day I got some bullshit. It wasn't an axe or something. The other day I got the sweater. I didn't go back after that.
Huh. I only fought her one time.
I know that's like kind of dependent on when you face her and how many times, maybe.
Maybe I faced her on day 3, and that's why I got the pitchfork.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I did get the pitchfork, and it was fucking awesome, man. It killed everything in one hit except for Jason. it made that game a nice little game for kids. I don't know how you're going to grade this gameplay wise, but I went with a 4.5. I went with 4.5.
I went with a 4. So we're pretty close this time. So points for ambition. You have a day-night cycle. That's huge. Like, and you have like, so the whole campground, like you start in the middle of the day and then you have this really nice sunset that's like setting the stage, and then you go into like the full night mode, and like having that in a game from 1989 and like exploring all these cabins at night, like major vibes, good atmosphere.
Yeah.
And we're in this era where like it's impossible to kind of scare a player. We just don't have the technology yet, you know?
Sure.
To make a true horror game. And I appreciate that like there was an attempt to replicate the stress of watching a Friday the 13th movie, to put that stress on the player by having all these like things to manage, right? You're managing your time, you're managing your counselors, you're managing the children, you're trying to amass weapons, you're dealing with enemies on screen, and you're trying to find your way, you're trying to explore. There's a lot of stress, and when Jason shows up, you are like, oh shit. Like,
I can't do this yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that. But that said, it's kind of like the Sub-Zero situation where like, I see the attempt at something. There's promise. There's ambition. I appreciate that. This game gets talked about as one of the worst games of all time in certain circles. I have no idea why that is. It is not.
Yeah, I don't see that.
There's a lot of good stuff here, and it really shoots. It falls short, but it goes for something. But just the cheap deaths, the useless counselors, the annoying constant like children having to manage them. Jason attacks are so cheap. You know, he's tough enough, like facing him in a cabin. Sometimes you leave the cabin, suddenly he's like outside as well, and he just like rushes you, and like you can't do anything.
Absolutely wrecks shop outside of cabins.
If you don't have one of your good counselors, there's nothing you can do.
That counselor is boned.
The cheapest shit is when you're rowing to save the kids north of the lake, and you're in the boat, and just like you've gotten the alert that Jason's in that cabin with them, and you've got like 30 seconds until he starts. Like you have 30 seconds. You basically have a minute countdown. When it hits 30, like the kids are starting to die every 10 seconds or whatever it is, right? Just ticking down. So you really have 30 seconds to get there. On the way to this cabin where Jason supposedly is, he also zips by in a fucking rowboat and just like takes a pot shot at me. Like, what the fuck is this like quantum superposition Jason Voorhees? Like he exists in like two states of matter at once. But Jason is both like particle and wave. He's here in the cabin. He's out on the lake. He's here and he's not here.
He's in the cabin, but we're not observing him in the cabin, so he's also on the lake.
Schrodinger's slasher.
Yeah. Schrodinger's Sultan of Slash.
That's good. Oh, that's some nice alliteration. I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just it's shitty. There's a lot of just shitty gameplay choices, design choices here. So it's a 4. It fails.
Yeah. It does some things that are pretty fun, but it fails at the big things that I wanted from it.
Yes.
So we're talking NES. So visuals and sound will be two very, very fast categories. Visuals, Jason looks really cool. Like, Jason looks good.
Really? That's a hot take, I think. That's the first time I heard that one.
In comparison to the fact that all of the counselors are the exact same sprite, except they have different coloration.
Yeah, that constantly confused me.
And the faces of the kids up in the top left corner of the screen are just like ovals. Like, they're just smiley faces. Man, there's some interesting choices. But I think the villains, or the baddies, I guess, they're noticeably different. The wolves are kind of cool looking. The bats can absolutely fuck off in that cave, though. You can't see them unless you get a flashlight, which I never found.
I never found the flashlight either.
Yeah.
I did everything I was supposed to do for that flashlight. I don't know where that thing is.
Fuck those bats. That pissed me off a lot. So I went straight down the middle on this one and gave it a 5.
Okay. Because
it failed for the main characters, but I thought it did some pretty cool visuals with the bad guys. Yeah,
for me, thinking about it visually, I want to put it like right at the cusp of like pass fail. So I give it a 7 actually. Because
really,
I think there's some really nice environmental design in a number of places, like the dark, shadowy woods. Like they really do convey a sense of place, of atmosphere. And it's a nice contrast to like the bright green campground. And I've always liked that idea of having a space that feels safe or normal and like gradually taking that away from the player. Like one of the best examples of this is Silent Hill 4, The Room, where you're in your apartment and at first it's a normal apartment and it steadily sort of like warps as time goes on and becomes more like fleshy walls and degraded and frightening, and the nightmare world encroaches into your safe space and you gradually lose that. Right. I love that idea. So it's not to the same degree, but the day-night cycle does give like, oh, we're in the sunset now. Oh, we're heading into the dark times. And it is like, it's a nice sunset. You know, it's got like this vibrant oranges and reds. And then you go into like full night. So the campground transforms throughout each day. I thought that was a nice visual effect.
I do want to point out real fast, we're only in the third category, and it has just beaten Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. We still have sound and fun left to go.
The other thing, while you're like running around the lake, there's a nice scrolling effect. Like the immediate surroundings of your character, they scroll along with your movement at their walking speed.
I did like that.
If you got Debbie, that's very slow. If you got Chrissy, it's scrolling a little faster. And then you've got that far off background, like the mountains and trees that scroll at a slower pace, right, along with you. So there's a change in the scrolling speed there, which gives you a nice sense of scale and distance to the background. I thought that was a nice effect. Which, with all these games, like you have to remember, like limited memory, very limited space to work with. So like every sprite is like a little less space on the cartridge that they have to work with. You're saying all of that, and I didn't even think about like the background and how it shifted. I'm actually going to raise mine up to a 6. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was good. I thought the cabins were very atmospheric. Like I said, Atlas, I was getting like a sense of, oh yeah, they've done this before. This was their fourth game, I think. So Digital Devil's Story was the first one. They did the Karate Kid tie-in game after that, which I'm
also done by LJN.
Oh yeah.
I think also distributed by LJN.
They had a great working relationship.
Yeah.
I'm newly interested in checking that out. There's a lot of simplicity, like some of you mentioned like the kids, like smiley faces on the menu. There's some very bad like design of the icons in the menus. But when we get to the kids, like actually in the world, at first I was thinking, as I was like thinking critically, like, what am I going to rate this? Because like the animation is stiff. It's barely there. There's not a lot of life to this world. Every counselor looks the same. They all got the same like mushroom, big bulbous bob haircut and like short shorts.
Sure.
They got palette swapped or whatever. There's some very bad visuals. I don't think Jason is well designed. His vibrant purple tracksuit, it is iconic. But it's like iconic because it's notoriously bad. I don't care for his design. And at first I was like, they didn't even bother. Like you go in the cabin with the kids and they're just lined up motionless along the wall, just standing
there.
Like
creepy, dude.
Twins from The Shining, just waiting, like, thank you for saving us.
Play with us.
But the more I thought about it, and it wasn't until I played the next game we're going to talk about, Nightmare on Elm Street, where I was thinking like, oh, that world felt so alive and animated. And I kind of, in retrospect, appreciated the stillness of Friday the 13th. Like, I think assuming best intentions on the part of the developers is maybe a little too generous. Like maybe they just didn't give a fuck. They didn't decide to animate that. But as a player, like the whole thing about this franchise, Camp Crystal Lake, is a sense of being isolated, like trapped in this place without easy access to the outside world, right? Usually, oh, the cars won't start. Oh, the phone line's dead. Jason severed it with a machete. We're trapped here. We can't get out. The woods are part of like the menacing aspect to this location. So like to be going in these cabins, there's nothing there. To be in the woods, it's just copy pasted. To go get the kids, they're motionless. It's just like there's no life to this place. It adds to the atmosphere for me.
I was going to say, I think that, and we may get into this in a second with Nightmare on Elm Street. I think this is a horror game, and Nightmare on Elm Street is an action.
Mm-hmm.
Like this game is intended to be a game about a horror movie, and it is noticeably so that.
Yes. And for that reason, it is more ambitious. It's trying something here, which I appreciate. Yeah. It doesn't execute.
It doesn't necessarily execute. Yeah. So sound, I know that I've got a little bit to say about the sound in this game.
I have very little to say. We've talked often about the 6-word story. Here's my 2-word analysis. It sucks.
Yeah, it's bad.
Absolute dog shit. I can do it in one word. Compound word. Dog shit.
top to bottom, did not enjoy the sound in this game. I mean, the only thing that I enjoyed, I think there were some interesting melodies in the cabin music when you go in a cabin.
I had the same thought. Yep.
I did not hate that.
No, actually, I maybe just play a bit of that. This is actually pretty nice. It's very like haunting and atmospheric.
Yeah, let's hit it.
So yeah, I mean that's nice. That sets the atmosphere like it should. What doesn't is
what doesn't is the rest of the music and that the fucking klaxon of when the children are in danger.
I hate that sound.
It's real bad. I really don't like it. And I mean, like you said, as often as it goes off, fuck that, man. Fuck that sound. Fuck that. The whole thing.
Yeah. It reminded me of like the sound like my childhood compact computer would make, you know, the one that was running Windows 95 and like, oh, if you tried to type two keys on the keyboard at once, it you know, shouted at you.
Honk at you. Yeah. I thought it sounded like a self-destruct sequence in like a 1970s or 80s movie.
That too. All just like annoying sounds or like piercing sounds that you usually only hear in short supply, but just imagine listening to that for hours on end.
I hated it. I hated that sound so much. Yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 10.
I gave it a 2.
Yeah, I mean, not surprising. The cabin music, the saving grace. And, you know, there was sound and there were different sounds for locations and events. So I gave it an extra point or two there. But man, the cabin music was the only thing that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, you say different locations. Like you have the cabins, you have the campground, you have the woods, you have the cave. There aren't like too many. Like it wasn't a big ask to just, you know, make 4 tracks that are like pleasant to listen to, or at least like atmospheric. That's the other thing is like, you might think like, okay, maybe there's not much to it, but like at least it reinforces like the horrific atmosphere. No, it's this 5-second little loop. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like, maybe play this one. Like imagine listening to this for more than like 30 seconds. That shit sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. That's real bad. That's a bad experience.
It's not even like a good kind of earworm. And like aside from the music, like none of the sound effects were really very good. Like you got the generic like pew pew for like throwing stones and stuff. That was fine.
I have a very, very big note for this game. It's something that Nightmare on Elm Street did that I thought was very, very cool. They used the Freddy song.
Yeah,
in the game.
That major.
When he was showing up,
so well done. Yeah,
that was super, super fucking cool. How hard would it have been to do the Friday the 13th? I would have loved a little bit of that.
That's it. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes, and there's not much to it.
That's probably easier to put together than the fucking beeps.
Yeah,
just like a little wispy effect. Like exactly, it wasn't much to ask from you, and you just totally fucking botched this.
Yeah,
it's awful.
That really, really frustrated me.
They didn't even like that. Was aside from that,
that was
like,
definitely my lowest score of.
Yeah, this is as low as it gets for me too. Like you get a point for the cabin music, and I don't even know what the other point's from. Kind of regretting it. Because like you have zombies. There's not even like a zombie groan, like the sound the wolves make. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, the wolf kind of sounded like if you put a duck in a voice modulator. Like it was really, really strange. Really strange choice. Fun factor.
3.
Really?
I had 3 points of fun.
I went with a 5.
Okay. I thought the initial hour or so was legitimately fun. Just being dropped into this, like I was fumbling, like I don't know what to do, but like I'm curious, I'm invested, right? There's exploration, there's new experiences, right? Like there are all these like weird cabins. What am I doing? Where are these fireplaces? There's a lot of systems at work. I'm not yet annoyed to death by the fucking beeps of the children.
I liked the fact that there were pretty. Yeah, the honeymoon period ended after like an hour and a half, 2 hours for me. I liked the fact that you could get weapon upgrades pretty safely. Like you got the knife pretty fast, and the knife was a noticeable upgrade from the stones. And then, you could find the torch and the machete, the axe, the trident, or the pitchfork. Not a trident would have been cool. And that's it for that.
Some of the weapons are pretty fun, right? When you first get like that, like the hatchet or whatever with like the spin on it, like, oh, things are moving really finally. But then that fun is immediately potentially taken away from you. Like, so the way that the weapon spawns work, apparently, like you kill a set number of enemies, right? And then you jump and then it spawns in the air. So a lot of times, like, things will spawn like during the arc of your jump, and it's almost unavoidable to get the pickup.
Right.
When you you spend all this time grinding out, like lighting all these fireplaces, traveling around, steadily upping your arsenal, getting the torch, getting something hefty, something with some punch to it. You get all that, and then you just randomly, accidentally spawn the very basic ass knife, and it supplants your high-powered weapon with that basic ass shit. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no reason that your inventory should be limited. Like, why not just allow you to cycle through the weapons in your inventory? No, it just replaces your powerful weapon with that bullshit, and you're back at square one. Fuck that. Maybe I was at a 5 and we dropped down to a 3. That sucks.
I did not have that happen to me.
Really? It happened to me several times.
Once I had anything other than the knife, I avoided knives like the fucking plague, man.
I mean, I tried, but just in the midst of like, you got like an onslaught of zombies, you got the kids screaming at you, you got crows swooping in like, oh, I'm having a moment, I'm trying to get these vitamins, and I accidentally picked up the knife. Fuck. Now I'm screwed. And the thing about those too is like, there's a finite supply of weapons in this game. Yeah.
You have to go to the right places at the right time to get the right weapon.
And
so if you lose that weapon all of a sudden, that sucks, man.
And if you pick up, so if there's like 14 knives in the game or whatever, right? If you've just picked up 14 already, maybe accidentally with some of them, right? So like they're not distributed out across your counselors. Maybe one counselor accidentally picked up 6 or so, right? Maybe this other counselor picked up 5, and you just like, and now you're stuck with fucking Debbie, right? At the end of the game, which often you are, because put her off for as long as possible. We get Debbie, and just like, there are no more knives left. There's not going to spawn any knives. We've depleted the finite supply of knives in this game. We're fucked. Start again. That's not fun.
I just hate Debbie so much.
I can't. I mean, it's obviously we are.
Sorry, Debbie. I hated Debbie so much.
But Jesus. All that to say, to finally make it to day 3, so you have to defeat Jason 3 separate days, and not 3 separate occasions. He's showing up many times throughout each of these days. You have to take him down. If you like, I don't even know how many times. I started to count and I lost count. And like, if you have like basic weapons, you're doing like, I don't know, not even 10% of damage to like his overall health bar, like each encounter. If you have like the torch, I think you're doing like a single bar of health with every hit. That's what I think I was doing.
The trident does, I keep calling it a fucking trident. The pitchfork does 3 bars of damage per hit.
Oh shit, no kidding.
Yeah, it's massive, dude.
Oh, man,
it's very good.
So to get like the grueling journey to the final day, and eventually we both kind of stumbled upon the same strategy, was just like outfit your counselors and stay put. Keep somebody. I kept Chrissy with the torch right by the lake at all times, didn't move her. So as soon as those kids started screaming, on the boat, into the cabin, ready to go. You can face Jason in there, do the torch damage, and then like back out and wait for him to pop up again. If he popped up in a different place, I sent that counselor after him and just tried to like fight him as best I could with what they had. They didn't have torches.
Unless it was Debbie. Did you just let Debbie die?
Debbie didn't make it. Let her die. She let herself die. She just didn't. She wasn't.
Debbie failed. Debbie failed us all.
Yeah. She didn't bring her A game. She didn't bring any game. So by the end of it, I just found myself sitting there waiting. Like, and I'm not a big phone guy. I don't find myself like pulling it out often to like check social media or whatever, right? Even when I'm like out and about, usually I'll have like a book or something. Or if like we're talking about like extended period of time, like got to switch. I'm going to do something proper. And just like, I am all checked up on all my social media accounts, I feel like, because I just was constantly pulling it out. Like, let me do something in this next minute or so as I'm just sitting here on the couch looking at the screen, waiting for Jason to show up. Just waiting, right. Not doing anything. No, I'm scared
knowing that you have the weapons that you want. Everything is you don't want to go searching for the fucking machete and the I'm just going to keep calling it a trident because I want to, or, shit like that. You have everything that you feel like you need. So yeah, it's just a fucking waiting game at that point.
My playthrough was a house of cards, and I'm like, all right, I'm got everything. The foundation's set up here. Let's move as little as possible.
Yeah.
Just wait for the trouble to come to us and fend it off as best we can and just get through this thing.
No one breathe on my house. Jesus.
So you do all that, and you are rewarded with a single screen that is like Jason splayed out in his tracksuit, like sitting on his butt with like his legs out like in a V formation, kind of like his head dropped down to like his shoulder, like in an all shucks pose with like his shoulders raised up. Like, oh, dang it, I blew it. And it's just, you have finally managed to defeat Jason, ... But is he really dead? ? We're not telling, 2 exclamation points, end. ...
Yeah.
That's it. Not the end.
Yeah.
Or see you next time, or no, just end.
Yeah, that sucks.
And then just boot right back to the title screen. Like, that's it. And like, yeah, usually we're in the era where there's not much to these endings, but I felt no.
I did not think this is one of the worst games that's ever been made.
No, it's a bad game.
It's a bad game, but it's not Mythologies. It's not. I've played worse games
for sure,
without question.
And I mean, like Mythologies, it's an ambitious bad game. It's just Sub-Zero Mythologies was ambitious in like such a worse way. Like it just what it went for, it failed so much worse. Like this, it achieves some of what it sets out to do, and it's
especially with the technological limitations that they had with this game.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to get into it. Like I enjoyed this next game so much more. But this is the more interesting game. I gotta say, it's the worst game. It's the less fun game, but it is way more interesting to explore and talk about.
So for those listeners keeping score at home on video games, Friday the 13th NES 47.5.
I'm glad you're keeping track. I didn't add mine up. Thank you.
Yeah, I got this. I'll be math boy.
Thank you.
All
right.
Moving directly into A Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm going to do the narrative thing again because again, I only know Freddy Krueger through like cultural osmosis, meme life. All I know is he's a scary dream man who invades your dreams and kills you in your dreams and you die in real life. Right?
Yeah, you have. So I was curious because with all of these characters, right? I had a conception of them from a very young age. Like I was telling you before, I watched these movies as a kid, secretly, in bits and pieces, fits and starts. But before that, like I want to say, I have a vivid memory of being in second grade, which I definitely hadn't seen them at that point. And someone in my class telling me that I better, whenever I go number 2, before I go poo-poo, always lift the seat and look carefully down into the drain to make sure that Freddy Krueger's not down there, because if you don't look before you sit down, he'll put his knife hand up into your butt. That's something I was told by class.
Your school was fucked up.
I wasn't even at the camp for wayward children run by the sheriff.
Okay, I'm going to be completely honest with you right now. Your teacher should not have told you that.
No. Did I give the impression my teacher told me?
No, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. I was like, did I not explain that right? This is a classmate. Oh, man, if Miss Rumley had said that shit, she would have been gone in a flash.
What was it with fucking elementary school and kids doing that shit? I had nightmares for years, partially because of Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but also, I was in kindergarten and like a third grader ran into our classroom and said that there was a killer clown on the loose. He was driving a white van and he was taking kids from their front yards.
Oh, Jesus.
And then left the room. Like, I vividly remember this. Every time I saw a white van, I ran inside my house.
Oh, man.
What the fuck was wrong with kids in the 90s making all of the little kids absolutely shit themselves?
I mean, I got to hand it to that classmate. I mean, that story sticks with me to this day. And I checked. I didn't sit down for doo-doo time without checking for Freddy Krueger for years. And I still
don't like white vans.
I mean, yeah.
Or clowns.
Those are effective. I got to say, my classmate, I mean, that's just peak. That's the perfect marriage of like scary urban legend that I'm telling to a classmate. And also, I figured out a way to just shoehorn butts into it. I also got to be naughty. Yeah. We got to make a butt joke. So like these characters are out there in like the childhood consciousness, right? The collective unconscious of children. Jason I gotta say, I think like Jason, like he's not the best designed, not creature, but like, I don't know, like horror character, maybe of all time, because like the viral aspect of Jason, right? Like anybody that had a hockey mask when we were kids, they were always like popping that on for at least like 10 seconds and be like, look, I'm Jason.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen the movie. We didn't know what Jason was. We just knew he's the big scary guy with the hockey mask. And it's just to implant that in a whole generation of kids and have it reinforced continually by these everyday objects, right?
This is the smallest Bo's trivia corner ever. I did not know this until recently. Apparently, he doesn't even wear a fucking hockey mask until the third movie.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so the first movie,
he's just like he's just like a burned, drowned boy, man.
He's not really present in the first movie until, spoiler alert, I don't know if you're going to watch this movie. It's one of my all-time favorite jump scares. It is brilliant. It's so good at the end of the first movie. Where Jason
and in the
shows
second
up.
one, he just has like a burlap sack on his head.
Yeah, with like one eye hole. I think.
Like what?
They were trying a couple different things. Like they didn't know what they were doing. The first movie is like, it's the mom. Jason is dead. Second movie is like, actually, he's alive. He survived, which kind of undercuts the whole thing that his mom was doing in terms of revenge in the first movie. He's out in the woods. Sure. He lives here. And then he's like, he's killable. Now he's not killable. Now he's dead. Now someone else is pretending to be him. Now he's back from the dead via lightning strike. It's all over the place. It's a fucking mess of a movie franchise.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So Nightmare on Elm Street, NES.
Anyway, yeah, moving forward.
Huh. I did not notice that until just now. Nightmare on Elm Street acronym is also NES.
Look at that. Synchronicity.
Narrative structure. You are basically young adult.
And a bright red tank top, looking tough, neighborhood tough.
Man,
kind of like the River City Ransom vibe.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Ready to wreck shit. Yeah.
You are collecting Freddy's bones to burn them, which, okay, as a big fan of the TV show Supernatural and just a big fan of like the occult, quote unquote, in general, like salting and burning bones is a pretty cliched way to deal with an evil spirit on TV for the most part. So like, I'm already in. I already feel more confident about this narrative than I did for the Friday the 13th one. We have an evil demon dream man who will murder you while you sleep in your dreams. We're collecting his bones to salt and burn them to drive out the evil spirit. Perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Get it. Awesome. Problem I had. Who am I in this game? Like, I know I'm a kid or a young adult, but like, there's no, at least like in Friday the 13th, I had characterization. I was a camp counselor. I was protecting kids. In this, I'm a tank top wearing boy who is trying to drive out an evil spirit. But like, there's not a lot of why or how or what it is. Also, kind of like Jason, man, there's a lot of weird fucking baddies all over the place, huh? Elm Street is not a great place to live.
Again, just NES era, just bullshit. Like, we need stuff for you to do in between the boss fight. So, like, what can we just throw at the player? Like, I don't know, rats and spiders and shit, whatever. The snakes
were good.
Yeah.
But like, jumping over to like the nightmare realm was super fucking cool. Like, that was great. Really, really liked that part of the story.
Yeah.
Where all of the enemies, more enemies spawned. All of the enemies were a little bit different, and they had more about like Freddy to them. Like the spiders all of a sudden gained a Freddy head for their body.
Yeah, so that was so fun.
Like it's super silly, but it was like,
I mean, those movies are silly in a good way.
I understood this narrative.
Yeah, I mean, this is a case where, again, there's not much like true story, and there's like, within the game, there's nothing, right? There's no cinematics or notes or NPCs to interact with. There's just like getting the bones and fighting stuff. But the very fact of having this nightmare realm, so the whole time you're battling sleep, right? You've got an encroaching, like a sleep meter ticking down as you take damage, as you spend time hanging around. Having a constant threat of like, oh, you're about to go into the nightmare realm where like the whole world is going to flip Silent Hill style, right? You're going to be in the dream. Everything's going to morph into a more menacing version of itself. We're going to get like skeletons, like you said, spiders with Freddy heads. And then you're going to have
the new Skellos.
Oh, that's right. Reading through the manual, right? Like
there are Skellos, Hounds, Shamblers. Oh God, what are the cats called? Night Stalkers,
Night Prowlers.
Night Prowlers. Damn it.
Yeah, and then a little impish demon guy called I want to say Bogle, just because it's got a single G, but I prefer to call him Boggle. Does that have any kind of basis in fantasy? Is that like a thing? Is a Bogle a thing?
A Bogle? I think it's a Bogle. I think they're like little trickster demons, maybe in Celtic mythology.
Oh, okay.
This is me pulling what little I can from my ass.
Well, I'm gonna keep calling him Boggle because I prefer that.
You just shake him up really good and then make words out of his.
Yeah, it's just like we got the most like basic ass shit, but we're gonna give everything a fun, funky name and have you like try and pretend it's not, just the most generic shit imaginable.
And then to go along with the narrative, like you also all of the bosses you fight are different aspects of Freddy, as opposed to the same boss battle over and over again. Which again, loved that very, very much after playing Friday the 13th.
Yeah, until you get to the end and it's just a boss rush through the same shit. But right,
I mean that's so fucking classic NES stuff. I think.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, I don't know. Like, there's enough narrative getting me in the door. It's tied back to the movies. If you've seen the movies, you know exactly what's going on. If you haven't, it's pretty clear pretty quickly. Right, having it's kind of a gameplay thing, but right, like having the sleep meter, the impending like doom of going into Nightmare Realm, and then if you hang out there for too long, Freddy's coming. The lullaby when he comes in, that's more of a sound thing, but these are like all tied up in each other. Like it conveys narrative through gameplay mechanics, through visual design, through the music, and I think it's pretty well done. I gave it a 6. Yeah. Like it's like it doesn't pass on the metric of like doing anything interesting or like original or above like
I gave
the most
it a
basic.
7.
7? Yeah, okay.
I gave it a 7 because of the fact that I've never seen a movie, but I still understood what was going on. Like I didn't feel like I was missing a whole bunch not having seen the film. And for an NES game to give me enough narrative where I can understand what's going on just based on gameplay and little notes here and there, that made me feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. I would say like it did a lot of things well there, but it didn't do anything novel, and I feel like there were still a lot of missed opportunities where like we're just going down Elm Street, we're going into a lot of samey buildings. There's not a lot of like there was a potential with the Nightmare Realm. You can do all kinds of wild shit, and it just didn't go for it, And it could have done more.
I have
with the
a
narrative.
lot to say about gameplay when it comes to some of that
it's
stuff.
Just more varied environments, which is kind of to me like with a game like this, that is part of the narrative. Like where are you going and why are you there? So it didn't really pass on that metric to me. It's 6, but it's not bad. Totally, it's just sort of underwhelming.
Yeah, I get that. That. So before we move on to gameplay, we talked about who made Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. Did you also see who made?
Oh, I did.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Fucking rare, dude.
Yeah, that's why it's fun. Yeah, it's a fun game.
Like noticeably different gameplay, noticeably different style. No wonder this is a good time to play.
It's like for those who don't know, Rare. I mean, where do you
Donkey
begin?
Kong?
GoldenEye 64, the Donkey Kong Country games, right? Yeah.
Sea of Thieves, this released in 2018?
Yeah.
Really, really good pirate game.
We got Diddy Kong Racing. We've got Jet Force Gemini. I'm thinking of like my peak Rare fandom was the 64 era for sure.
Oh, fuck, dude, they did Banjo-Kazooie.
Blast Corps. That was a favorite of mine. That was a lot of fun.
Blast Corps.
That's
Damn,
good one,
that's
right?
good.
Yeah. Just a great developer, like storied history, prolific, and a lot of just gems in there.
Yeah, they do a lot of really, really cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons that suddenly the gameplay and the narrative structure made sense to me once I saw who made the game, because perfect. I mean, not perfect, but it fits with Rare perfectly to me.
Sure. So this is a game that came out in 1990. So I do want to keep that in mind as we're putting these two games side to side, because you might think like, okay, Friday the 13th was February 1989. This is October 90. You might think, oh, back to back, but I mean, in this era, like a year and 8 months or whatever, that's massive. Like there are huge advances being made. I mean, in that time frame, like 90, this in Japan, the SNES was coming out this time. Like that's how far Super Mario. They're playing Super Mario World over there, and we're like stuck here doing this shit. But
yeah, I was gonna say SNES came out in America in what, 92?
I think 91 next year. I want to say, but I'd have to check
Damn.
that. So this year, like on NES, like just to keep it consistent, right? We're talking about this console. We've got Mega Man 3, we've got Dr. Mario, Final Fantasy 3, Smash TV, Snake's Revenge, like some of the other things that would have been vying for your hard-earned dollar at the game store.
Of those games you just listed, my wife would go Dr. Mario, no question.
I think I would too.
She will destroy anyone at that game. It is absolutely disgusting how good she is at that game. I would have gone Final Fantasy 3 as a kid because I loved me some Final Fantasy, or this.
Yeah, I can't believe I just said Dr. Mario when Final Fantasy is looking me right dead in the face.
Yeah, I was like, buddy, are you okay? Are you feeling okay?
I don't know. It's like I just said it and then like it totally evaporated from my mind that I just said that. Yeah, right. Final Fantasy 3 is it though? I mean, 3 is a good one. I love that series. Good. I do prefer the narrative ones though. I kind of go 2 and 4 over like 1 and 3. But anyway, that's save that for the Final Fantasy series.
Yeah, it'll be Final Fantasy episodes. So gameplay, with that in mind, with this being a rare game, the thing that blew me away about this game, coming from Jason, coming from Friday the 13th, was the fact that it felt so good to play in comparison. And the fact that you have different classes that you can change into in like the dream world.
Yes.
And all of them have very, very particular abilities and ways that they need to be used.
Dude, that ninja jump kick. That's my shit. Dude, that's so good.
Dude, the ninja jump kick.
Man.
I didn't use anyone else other than the ninja.
Same.
I think.
Until I got to a boss and it was wizard time. But like, just you automatically go into a ninja jump kick when you're jumping with this guy, and you will just kick through any bullshit coming your way. It fucking rules. It's so good.
The boss battle with Freddy's head and the hand that was bouncing around. I just jump kicked the entire time and fucking wrecked shop, dude. It was awesome.
Oh, you mean the boss battle where it's basically the DVD screensaver thing, where it's like the logo bouncing around. You're always like trying to, is it going to hit the corner? You know, that famous bit from The Office, like, yeah, one of those.
So the fourth or fifth boss battle is the ghost. No, it's not the ghost. It's the Freddy head free floating as well as the DVD hand, right? You have to face them both at the same time.
I think I made notes of this. Let's see. We got Freddy hand on the chain, like the Mario, whatever that thing is, the chomp chomp thing.
Chomp chomp.
Chomp chomp. Is it called chomp chomp? All right. Then we got the head on the chain.
I think that's what they call it in Zelda. It's chomp chomp.
That's what okay. I meant to look that up. Then we got the head on the chain. Then we got the hand that bounces around like the DVD thing. Yeah. Then we got the bat thing. Yeah. Okay. And then then the head wearing like the ghost sheet like dress thing, and then the head and the hand together. I think that was the order. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Yeah. Just Freddy appendages.
But yeah, when you face the head and the hand together, you just jump kick the whole fucking time, and you just it's awesome.
It is awesome. It's fun to play. It honestly, like at first, I was like the first hour or two so stressed, like, oh man, I like drink the coffee, find every boombox, stay out of Nightmare World. But then once I started like leveling up the classes, like let me just hang out here. This is fun.
I really, really thought that the sleep meter was going to affect me the same stress level and anxiety style as the kids in Friday the 13th. As soon as I saw there was another fucking countdown in a game based on a horror movie, I'm like, God, not again. If I hear the fucking beeping and klaxon sound, I don't know if I'll be able to play this game.
Right.
I was genuinely concerned I was going to show up for us to record this and me just go, I couldn't do it, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I was worried about
that.
But
instead, I just wanted to stay in the dream world once I got the ninja.
I know. It's just like fun times are on the way. Because like, so you're basically doing like the Dream Warrior thing. You're in the dream, so now you can use Dream Warrior powers. You're wizard, you're ninja, and for some reason, an acrobat? Like, come on.
Acrobat.
How you gonna?
So
have
it was
wizard and ninja.
It was Shadow Warrior was the ninja. The wizard was a necromancer, but looked like fucking Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey.
And also didn't do any necromancing. Just fired like a little energy.
Shot little fireballs and then hovered over the ground a little bit.
Yeah.
And the acrobat, which is not what it was. He was he was just a gymnast or an athlete,
throwing
right?
like a javelin. Yeah.
He had a javelin and he did front flips.
Yeah, and the flip was cool, but once you get the ninja kick, you don't go back. But yeah, just like we could have done,
kick, man.
That's just, I mean, this is a product of the 80s, 90s, though, right? Like, if we have a chance to put a ninja in something, we are doing it. There's going to be a ninja in this thing. Say no more. Yeah, it just meant, like, good times are on the way when I heard that. Like, it's going to get harder. You're going to be in the nightmare world, but, like, the nightmare world is, like, very vibrant, like, colorful, like, creepy. It's fun. It's, like, going into, like, I don't know. It reminded me of like going into the dark world in like Link to the Past, or
yes, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, or like in Super Mario World where you after you clear Star Road and like you go back through and everything is like morphed into a new different version of itself.
Right.
Had those kind of vibes. A lot of fun.
And plus all the kind of goofy enemy changes with like the Freddy head on the spider body and it's fun stuff like that. Like that was it was silly and fun. I had a really good time. I had a good time with this. The gameplay was fun.
It was. The only reason at first, like, stay out of the nightmare realm, because basically when you're in there long enough, you start hearing that Freddy lullaby. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And then he shows up and you got to fight Freddy. And at first, he's pretty hard. Like, if you don't have anything, right? Like, I finally got it down. Like, I got down his pattern where it's like, oh, you wait for him to jump over you, then you like do your own jump attack, and on the descent, you kind of like smack him in the back of the head. And it was just so refreshing. Like, finally something felt fair. Like, the Jason battles never felt fair. It's just like fumbling through and just, I don't know. I never got the patterns down. Never felt good. This was like, this makes sense after a while. I can get better. I can learn from my mistakes and I can take him down. It's time consuming. But once you get your powers, man, he's no longer an issue. He shows up and you just zap his ass.
He's a fucking joke.
Yeah. And you just right back out into the nightmare realm. And like, that's the big threat. Keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed the dream powers. Like that was a really cool little note.
You got fun power-ups, fun abilities, decent level design. It's nothing special. It's just like moving platforms here and there, like going upstairs, jumping between levels, whatever, dodging.
Pretty classic side scroller sort of thing.
Yeah, in fact, I want to say it's like kind of mediocre in that regard. Like the level design is not good. It's not great.
And, you know, the collecting the bones thing as a goalpost to get through levels worked for me. Fine.
I like that. It's a fun mini game in itself. Like, it's like kind of the hunt, right? Like, at first you're like,
especially when you miss one that's like in a curtain or something, and the curtain's white, but so is the bone, and you're like, damn it. No wonder that freaking force field didn't come down.
It was telling that, like, I would get to the end of the level, be ready to go up the stairs, and like, oh, there's the force field. I can't progress. I didn't find all the bones. I got to go back through. And it's like the exact same situation that I was in Mortal Kombat Mythology, Sub-Zero, where it's like I get all the way to the end of this stage and like, oh, I don't have the key. I have to go back and take another pathway. And in that game, I was like, God fucking damn it. Like, just,
I don't want to do this.
I want to give up the will to live. And this was like, okay, it's kind of like, yeah, all right, let me go back through. I got to dodge all this stuff. But I didn't mind too much because it's fun. The moment-to-moment action is good. It feels good. You're moving. The jump feels good. It's responsive. You have your powers. You have like you can attack in the air. Who'd have thunk?
I was going to say, hey guys, guess what? In this game, you can do 2 things at once.
Yeah. And it's a fun hunt. It's like playing I Spy. It's like, oh, where am I going to find the bone? Is it in the curtain? Is it on the windowsill? Is it under the stairs? Is it behind an enemy? Behind a column? It's good stuff.
It was fun. It was good.
Yeah.
So what'd you do for gameplay?
I did a 7. It passes. We've got a passing score here. Just everything we just listed. It didn't score higher for me because at the end of the game, it got kind of fucking annoying, as I imagined it would. There's like when you finally, so you're basically the game, which we haven't really described it too well yet. Like, you start out on Elm Street, you're able to go in and out of some buildings. I think it's randomized what you can go in and out of. It seemed to change for me, right?
It's weird, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't understand exactly how that worked.
Oh, it took me like, I want to say half an hour to figure out how to go into a building. And I was like reading the manual, I was like, just hit up. And I kept trying, and I guess I was missing a house. And this is bad visual design. Like, at first I was like, go into the houses with the open doors. Like that would be signaling to the player, like, come here first. But no, that has no impact on whether or not you can go into the building. Just the stock background. Like, some of them have a closed door. Some of them are open. That has no bearing on whether or not you're able to go inside. It's
the cemetery is wide open, but you can't go in it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You need a key for the open cemetery gate. Yeah. So you're going in and out, you're collecting bones, you're getting keys for the next location, and once you finally cleared all of the places on Elm Street, the cemetery, the junkyard, the buildings, you go into the school, you go down through the school, down to the catacombs that are apparently below the Elm Street High School, and that's where you face Freddy in all his final forms and burn his bones. And those...
Wait, so that was catacombs for you? I thought it was just like the boiler room.
Well, I'm using a descriptive phrase to describe what
okay, cool.
They were like. Yeah, we're below the school, but like, what is this environment? It's like stony and like labyrinthine and like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's boiler room via 1980 or 1990 NES game, right? Like we're gonna dress up and
cool.
make it.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I didn't completely miss a room or an entire level.
You missed the room with the lore dump and all the NPCs and the
Damn
rich
it,
narrative.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Shit.
There was a Rovin level exposition in one of these places. You missed it.
Scorpion was there. It was crazy.
That there was like some just annoying shit, which is maybe of the era, right? Like, what really pissed me off, there are these platforms that come out of the abyss. Usually when you stand on a platform, if you stand on it, like if you're trying to get the timing right to jump to the next one, you just stay on that thing. But these drop off the screen, but not like
and kill you.
They don't telegraph that they're going to do that. They're just like their natural movement pattern takes you off screen and that kills you. Once you know that's going to happen, it's fine. But I didn't care for that. There are a lot of places
that killed me a couple of times.
Yeah, there are a lot of tough jumps. Like you come to the edge of a precipice and you need to jump over a gap, but there's like a ceiling, a very low ceiling with like no clearance, and you're gonna just like bop your head. You're gonna bump your head on like the arc up, and it's gonna knock you down into the abyss. It's like tough to get out and on the other side of that. A lot of that.
That's when I busted out the necromancer and just hovered across.
Yeah, that's true. Right. But like sometimes you got bats coming though. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about that, but it's like it wasn't bad. It was just annoying. But there was one. It's the final area. Like it's not. Did you notice where you needed to go? Because there's all these gaps that like you would die if you were to jump down, and just one of them takes you
is
to
the right one.
Yeah. Like how would you know that?
I did not.
There are some Freddy hands that kind of signal like there's something here, but they don't really signal anything. It's just like more enemies. But like that's the one where you just have to like take a leap of faith and jump down to. I actually had to pull out. I was like, I've gone through this fucking boiler room catacomb shit like several times. I've been here for like 20 minutes. I have no idea where to go. I've checked everything. Let me just pull up a map. And I looked at the map. It's like, oh, it's right there. It's just one of these holes in the floor. All right, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And then just the boss rush. I'm not a huge fan of boss rushes, to be honest. Like I think it's lazy.
The boss rush was the thing that knocked my score down a little bit.
It was tough.
But I still had a genuinely good time playing the game.
I did
and
too.
Gave it an 8.
Nice. Yeah. I think if we had some more ambitious level design in a couple places, I might have gotten there. The problem for me is like we have the junkyard and we have the cemetery, which are like kind of unique. Other than that, all the buildings is pretty much the same interior, right? It's like going up another staircase, going across some platforms. It's all the same. And just they didn't really take a chance on anything or like try to take me somewhere interesting or new. So you pass, but could have done better. Not quite yet a B student in my book.
Again, man, coming from some of the other stinkers we've played, this one, to actually have a good time playing a game, it really, really changed how I scored this one.
The Oasis in the desert, yeah.
Yeah.
It really, like, I was trying to, like, be more objective. Like, am I just feeling this happy because I've played nothing but just garbage for a couple weeks in service of this show?
Yeah.
God. Yeah. Anyway, so moving on from gameplay, what do we got next?
Visuals.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. Vibrant. Lush, animated, alive, big sprites.
Yeah. I liked the fact that, again, sorry, Sub-Zero, like, things were noticeably, like, there was effort put into enemy design.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for the bosses.
Yeah.
Some of them did similar things, but they were all different enough where you actually did need to, like, adjust your approach, which, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, passed.
Yeah, passed for me. I did a 7.5.
I did a 7.
Nice. I think so. Some things I really liked. Walking along Elm Street, all of the buildings in the background have this like one point perspective where they like, so one point perspective is basically when you have two parallel lines converging at a point, usually off screen or like way up high, right? And so it gives a sense of like scale. So for this, like that made all of the buildings seem to like tower over me. It gave a sense of like powerlessness and like foreboding. It really enhanced the atmosphere for me. Just that one design choice, like it was noticeable coming from Friday the 13th, where all the cabins are at the same perspective level. They're all flat, square, perfect. This one is like, no, we've got some dimensionality here. Really nice.
I just loved his little animation of him running up the stairs. It was so fucking silly. Yeah. And his elbows were out like so far away from his body as he just like jogged up the stairs.
Out on full display because we got that tank top. We're showing up the guns here.
What a fucking doofus. I loved him. I love that little doofus.
Don't know who he is, but I like him. I like his style.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that all these environments change, right? They all have a nightmare version of themselves, and that nightmare world is like vibrant reds and deep, like purplish, like purpley blues, and all of the like the cool grays and like the subterranean areas. It's like a very varied, just vibrant, lush color palette. It was so refreshing coming from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree.
Yeah, like I said, nice animations, nice, like you said, nice enemy design, big, colorful sprites. And if there had been more to it, it would have ranked a lot higher. We have a great foundation for something here. My problem, why it's just a 7.5, it's just not varied enough. The whole area, the entirety of the game feels like it could be the first area of a larger game. And I know like we don't really have games that large and that big in this era usually.
Right.
So it's like maybe asking for too much, but like you didn't have to send me in and out of like 5 different houses that look the same. You could have done one and moved me on to somewhere more interesting because you got the junkyard and you got the cemetery a little bit. You got some visual variation there, but other than that, we're going in and out of a lot of the same kinds of interiors. And it was just a little too much of the same to rank much higher than that,
Yeah, I agree.
And just also like, I don't know, NES era bullshit, right? We keep saying it. Like rats, why? Just cause. Spiders, why? Just cause. Drips Bats from the ceiling that damage you, why? Just cause you got to have something here to hurt you.
Dude, some of the, even in not Nightmare, there were like giant shards of like spikes and glass coming out of the ground when you're on Elm Street. I was like, what the fuck is happening in this fucking town?
Yeah. That's the other thing. Like, you don't even really bat an eye at it if you play a lot of NES era games, but like, why is this platform here and why is it covered in spikes? Like, some of the things make sense, like they're spawned from Freddy, but other than that, it's like, why? Because it's an NES platformer. That's why there's no diegesis or like attempt to make it make sense.
Who designed this fucking house? Like, this house is absolutely just batshit insane.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there a pit to your death in this person's fucking foyer?
Yeah. Elm Street. It's a
fucking Elm Street, man.
It's a vibe.
But yeah, again, pretty fun time. Sound. Now, this is something.
Yeah.
The music, the sound in this game fucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, the sound in this game absolutely slaps. It's very, very good. You already mentioned that Freddy's Lullaby kind of shows up to like herald his like upcoming arrival as like a mini boss.
It's so good. It's pulled from the movies, but also like even if you don't have any conception of
it's that perfectly creepy.
Yeah, you're gonna associate that with him soon enough, and it's just gonna work just fine on its own.
Yeah.
Well done. But the rest of it, it's just bop after bop. It's
good.
Yeah.
God, it's so good.
Can we just let's play something just to give you all a taste.
Yeah,
we can't even put it into
something.
Words. That shit rocks.
God, dude. Man, the music in this game fucks. It's so good.
Yeah. And even just like the little, getting the boombox, that little like, I don't know, however many second like little clip of music too, that always got me amped up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And the kind of distorted sound when you start dreaming. And then after that distorted sound, the nightmare music kicks in for the level, and you're like, oh shit, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good. Oh, this is good.
I don't really have much to say other than that. Just like good times.
It's great. It's great.
What'd you give it?
I gave it an 8.
Yeah, I gave it an 8.5.
Hell
and
yes.
I wanted to like, are you an A student? You're getting close. To me, it's like when we get to like 10, it's like, that's when you're talking about like your Zeldas, your Final Fantasies, your Marios, like your most iconic tracks of all time that just you find yourself whistling when you're not playing the game, you know?
Yeah.
And then just the 9 would be just short of that, right? And I think what really kept it out of the A for me was that final area. Because we've had awesome tunes all the way up to this final moment. And just paired with the boss rush of like, all right, you're just recycling all the shit I just did. And even the very final encounter is the exact same Freddy encounter you would have had multiple times throughout the game every time he came into your dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's exactly the same. So I was like well prepared for it, but like, come on, show me something new. That last track as you're like going through the boiler room on the way to burn his bones, it's just like this bassy 5-second loop for eternity. It's not really much of anything. It
was the only song that I didn't feel much for.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, like, how do you blow it here? Like, you're on stage, right? And you just did a 20-minute, like, Steve Vai solo on your guitar. And you're just like, all right, we're here. The audience is, like, primed. What's the big finisher? And you just, like, drop the guitar and your dick falls out of your pants.
I was going to say, you just did this face blistering guitar solo. And then someone's like, play Peter Frampton. You're like, okay, sure.
Wait, what? We might be on different sides of the Frampton here. What do you got to say?
No,
about
I love some Frampton. I was just I was thinking about High Fidelity.
Oh,
is that Peter fucking Frampton?
Gotcha.
But yeah, just man, I cannot believe they dropped the ball for the last level. It surprised the hell out of me.
Dropped the ball. You didn't get your A from me. Sorry. Next time, Rare. Which they got it next time. They did. Yeah, in subsequent games, they got their A. They got their A++.
Yeah, they did a lot of really cool shit. They have earned their title. And now we're into fun factor.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we both agree that this is a fun game. Like
it is.
It fails at a couple of things. The boss rush, I could do without. The level design is on occasion uninspired.
Mm-hmm.
But once you understand the mechanics of the game, it's a good fucking time.
Yep, I agree. For these, like I was saying before, I don't have nostalgia for the NES era so much.
Sure.
So there is that aspect of return to one of these games for me. Usually it's a little bit like doing your homework because I'm such a fan of the medium of video games, right? I'm a longtime gamer.
Right.
Spent a lot of time with this hobby. And I always am trying to fill in gaps in my own history to better understand, where we came from and what put in place the mechanics and the design choices that carry forward to this day, right? So there's always that level of interest for me, but the moment-to-moment action in an NES game is usually like not my favorite,
Sure.
It relies a lot on like twitch reflexes and memorization and stuff that's not my favorite aspect of gaming. So when I try and step outside of that, I end up at like a 7.5 again. Where like you passed, you're on the way to like get your honor roll if you keep this up. There's like a great foundation here. You got a lot of correct answers, but you didn't really iterate on the foundation you set. You didn't take me to more interesting places. You could have done more with a number of mechanics. You could have done more with the boss design. I just wanted more, ultimately.
Yeah. I actually gave it the exact same score, 7.5.
We are super aligned today.
Yeah, for the listener, we did not talk about our scores before we started doing this.
We didn't talk about anything.
Any of this.
Yeah.
Damn, that's very surprising. And my favorite part about this whole thing is the score for this one. 74.
Ooh. We got a passing score.
A passing grade.
You did
for
it.
An NES horror side scroller. Good job, Rare.
Good job. So this month is Freddy vs. Jason. We're keeping track here.
Yep.
Each episode, as we're covering another aspect of these two franchises, we're talking about them in terms of comparison, contrasting, and who ultimately is the victor. And I gotta say, judging it just on these NES games alone, Freddy is the clear winner for me.
Yeah,
Point for
agreed.
Freddy.
Freddy's music is probably worth more than the Friday the 13th video game.
For sure. Give me the album. Who needs the game? Just give me a CD of this.
I would love Nightmare on Elm Street NES album on vinyl.
I'm not gonna lie. I pulled up the YouTube soundtrack and I was listening to it as I was like, organizing my notes for today's show, like getting ready, like reviewing everything. I
turned on a run through in the background. Like I just pulled up a YouTube video of someone playing the game, and I just turned that on in the background just for the fucking music. Like,
hell yeah,
it's so good. God, it's good.
One thing that surprised me as I was streaming, not so much Nightmare on Elm Street, but for Friday the 13th, I did have some fans come through and like some people that had nostalgia for the game, and it was interesting to hear their thoughts. And actually, there was a lot more love for the game than I expected. A lot of fond memories, and also memories of confusion and frustration.
Yeah, I get that.
What I'm really curious about, for anyone listening and that's been riding with us so far, like, what are your thoughts on these games? So I thought this is a good opportunity to hear from you. What I'd like to do this week, and I think maybe we should set a deadline on it so that we have time to prep it for the next show. But let's say a week from today, like when this airs, which is Thursday mornings at about, like 4:30 a.m. or whatever. It's different for me. I'm on Japan time. I try and take myself out of the equation.
I was going to say, I think it's 3 or 4:30 Central.
Yeah. Okay. So that's American time.
We're in the AM.
Yeah. Bright and early. So if you have any experience with these games, and if you have your own opinion on which is the better game, we would love to know. Hop in the Discord, or we'll do our housekeeping and you have our contact information there in just a moment. But chime in. Let us know, what do you think is the better game? Which would get your point? If you haven't played the game, we still encourage you to reach out. Based on the conversation you heard today, where would you allocate your point? And we will tally those. And next episode, we'll add those to our score and go ahead and tell you where things stand and keep the competition rolling, I want to say.
Yeah, I love that idea. Speaking of, I guess I can go ahead and knock out some housekeeping for us. Email us these lovely, lovely opinions. Tell us what you think about the video games. Tell us about what you think about just Freddy and Jason in general. Which one would win in a fight? Which one would win in their own horror movie sort of thing? Email is sourcenotfoundpod@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page now that is pretty active. Pretty fun stuff going on over there. Look us up, Source Not Found Podcast. Instagram @SourceNotFoundPod. We have our Discord. And, as always, just thank you so much for any support, any reaching out, any interactions with either of us. This is starting month 2 for us, and it's a blast, and hopefully it's a blast for you guys listening to it.
I'm having such a great time doing this show with you, and every download, every listen, every time I log in each morning to check our RSS feed, check our RSS website, and see another person listen to the show, it's my dopamine kick for the day. It just keeps me rolling here.
Agreed.
It keeps me through the dark times when I'm wandering around. We didn't even talk about it, how Friday the 13th changes. Sometimes it's clockwise, sometimes it's counterclockwise to get around the camp. Fuck that shit. It keeps me going during those dark moments.
Yeah. And Patreon. We also have a Patreon.
I was about to say.
If you feel like financially supporting us in any way, shape, or form, fair warning. Come the new year, we're going to be having some Patreon exclusive content, maybe the occasional video. It's gonna get wild, kids.
Jump in there, get in there early, because right now, that shout out tier is there for the taking. Currently, we have Susie Daggs and Jacob Spindell on the shout out tier.
Friendship.
Thank you again. The support means the world to us. For everyone else, moving forward, I think let's just lay out the plan for the rest of this month.
Yeah, sounds great.
So that you can watch, read, play along with us, right?
Yeah, because you will be, if you are anything like me, which, God, I hope that's not the case for a lot of you. Brandon is giving me my own homework.
I am.
To introduce myself to these franchises. What am I doing, man?
Yeah. So, like we talked about, you have no history with this franchise. I have a decent amount of history. And right now, my goal for the next week is to watch, I want to say the last couple of Nightmare on Elm Street movies I've never seen. So that's going to impact my opinion here. I'm going to supply you with what I think are the 2 best movies from each franchise.
All right.
Since we're not doing the source material, they are sequels. So like the first movie in each franchise was not up for consideration. So that also impacted
Absolutely. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So for Friday the 13th, I want you to watch Part 6, Jason Lives. To me...
All the way to 6. All the way to 6, huh?
Sorry, you're not going to get your Corey Feldman fix. You just got a deal. But you are going to get his adult version, the adult version of that character. The thing about these movies is they just, one after the other, like back to back, the story keeps rolling. Sometimes mere moments after the last movie ended, you're into the next one. That's where it begins.
So, nope, I don't want to ask anything.
You don't know why is he doing what he's doing? We'll talk about that. But just Jason Lives. That's all you know.
Okay.
And then for Nightmare on Elm Street, I want you to watch Part 3, The Dream Warriors. That is my personal favorite. And that actually has been a long time. I haven't seen it since, God, I don't even know. So I'm interested to see, like, does that hold
I hope
up?
there is, I hope there's an acrobat. I hope there's a necromancer. And I hope there's a ninja.
Well, see, that was my thing. Like, I remember some of these from Dream Warriors. It's been so long that I don't know, like, was the acrobat, is there a reason they chose that? So I'm going to be finding out, too.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then as a little bonus for all of our beloved listeners and all of your support, it is October, which means Halloween. And so as a little Halloween present for everybody, come the 31st, we are both going to be watching for the first time Freddy versus Jason to put a nice little capstone on these 2 franchises for the month.
Yep. So that's one I have not seen. I missed that one entirely. So as we're tallying our scores, I think that's going to be the capstone, right? We're going to get into that movie. We're going to judge how each character performed within that movie. That'll be the final chance for them for really Jason to gain back some honor here and maybe pull out a win. It's not looking good already, but there's time.
Yeah.
Jason is one, slow and steady wins the race with Jason, right? He's always just walking around. He's never in a rush to be much of anywhere, but he always seems to get there. So
him and fucking Debbie, right? Jesus.
So for all of you, like we said, in the next week, by next Thursday, East Coast America time, chime in with your thoughts, your points. The same will go for the next 2 movies if you feel like watching along with us. A week after that show, we'll also accept your points. And then rolling into our Halloween special, we'll tally it all up. And we'll see who wins this competition, Freddy or Jason. My money's on Freddy.
Battle of Behemoths. The Sultan of Slash versus
the Maven of Mayhem.
Dream Boy.
Versus, what do we got for Freddy? I got nothing. Watch those toilet seats, folks. He'll get you in the butt. If you're not careful. He'll carve up your doo-doo butt.
Also, there's a white van full of clowns. They're coming after you.
Is that the sign off?
I think in this case,
hold on to
there's
your
a
butts.
white van. There's a white van full of clowns coming after you. That's actually a pretty good. My sign off initially was going to be, "Fuck you, Debbie," but
that's good too. All good choices. Let's do them all. Fuck you, Debbie. Watch your butts. Flawless podcasting.
And there's a white van full of clowns coming after you. Oh, Jesus.